So I'm Chris Arnold. When you say rank, what do you mean by rank?
Age.
29.
Okay. And how long you been doing
I've been
MMA?
doing it since October of 2020.
Okay.
So it's right about 4 years.
All
Right,
right.
4 years.
And did you do anything before that?
No, I had never been in a fight before that.
You never. Oh, well, okay. But have you done any like sports or martial arts?
I
Anything?
did football. I did gymnastics, but really I was homeschooled, and in Texas, once you get to high school or middle school, you can't be homeschooled and play for the city, and so I had to. I just went to work. I had a full-time job by the time I was 13 years old.
That's it. Tim Tebow. He did the same thing. He was homeschooled, and he had the same issue in Florida. But there, they were able to squeeze him in some school because he was such a athlete. But what you're saying is you couldn't do that from middle school?
So in Texas, there has been cases where coaches have paid for people to move cities. And so it's been proven in Texas, because football is that important to us,
Yeah, yeah.
so they basically outlawed it completely. You had to do, I think, 7 periods or 6 periods in one day to be able to play the game that day. So I could practice, but I could never play a game.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of like
So
no point in that at that
no,
point.
not at all.
All right, so you said you started 4 years ago, so that would have put you at 25.
Yes.
What brought you in?
I was doing some working out on the side. I was starting to lose weight, and I have this weird belief that if I'm going to have muscles, I want to do something with them. I want to I want to participate in something, because I think it's really silly for people to have big muscles and they do nothing.
Yeah.
And so I was looking for a gym, and ACS was the first gym to contact me back. And so
And that would have been Drew.
yep, and I just started showing up. And it was during the pandemic, so I got to come every day, 4 days a week, and I kept working out on the side, and I went from like 260 to 200 within 6 months of just consistent.
That's remarkable.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Now, is that in addition to working out? Did you change your diet much at all?
No.
Yeah, really? So that was all working out.
Yeah,
Huh.
yeah,
That's pretty good.
yeah. There was a lot of throwing up those days. There was a
But
lot.
when you were working out?
Yeah, a lot
Yeah,
of throwing
well,
up.
yeah. Yeah, because that's in the beginning, it's always, takes a little getting used to.
Yeah, I will say it was surprising how quickly I got used to it, but in the beginning, what caught me into the sport was I remember Drew picked me up, and I had not been picked up since I was 8 years old, and he picked me up, and I landed on the ground and kept going, and in that moment I was like, this is exactly what I want to, or where I want to be. This is what I want to do, and I told Coach Drew that night that I definitely want to sign up, but I still want my month free, and
Okay.
everything else is history.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure he was fine with that. Yeah, Drew can be very compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and not only as the guy recruiting you, but as a coach and as a trainer and as pretty much a personality in general. I mean, there's no missing his voice across the ring when you're out there.
Nope. It's the only thing you hear.
Yeah, yeah, well, right. Well, and that kind of makes sense, though, because in a way, I mean, you must have come across people who have done MMA or just regular BJJ, and they're not coachable.
Yeah.
And part of what makes them not coachable is they just never listen to the coach. Right? Do you run into that? Or have you run into
Yeah.
people like that?
I think it's a hard lesson to learn, in the sense of if you have that problem, being coachable is I mean, even just, and not even in fighting, really in all of life, being approachable and being coachable is a skill that it should be valued.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for being stubborn, but there's also sometimes the progress just isn't going to be there without it. Do you run into people? I mean, have you trained with people who are not coachable?
I have one of the things I always try to approach every scenario where I can learn from it. And so even if they're not coachable, like I want to work on I want to beat their best, essentially, and to me, that proves, in a sense, that being coachable is better, because if I can listen and I can, almost predict and move forward into that whatever that coaching is going to be, I feel like they would run into either repeating themselves or fighting a pattern, and that's where you get hurt. That's where you get knocked out, is when you're doing something over and over, or you're hesitating in a certain way. And that's why being coachable, because when you're in the cage, I mean, it's like there's nothing outside of what you're doing, because like all the lights dim everybody out. You don't see anybody. It's just you and that person. And it's like the more that you're getting in there and the more you're getting hit, it's like you get, everything gets closer and closer. And to me, in that moment, I want to hear what coach has to say, because if not, like, I feel like I'm to do something that I can't foresee. You know what I mean? I can't undo.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like being coachable, they have that ability from the outside to look in and be like, don't fall in that trap. Create that trap, and
He has an outside perspective.
yes.
That sometimes if you're too close to it, you just don't see it.
Mm-hmm. And I think people miss that when they don't want to listen to anybody else. They miss the fact that this person's on the outside observing you and the other person, and has a wisdom, point of view, whatever it may be, to help out. And not listening is just, it's going to get you hurt.
Have you found that there are times, maybe, not that you're not listening, but you just don't hear it, or just doesn't process what he's saying?
For me in particular, that's actually something me and Coach Drew have been talking about lately, is I'm really good at compounding wrestling. But when it comes to striking, I typically will do the last thing that was said. And so when it comes to fighting, to like wrestling and grappling and takedowns, like it's really easy to be there and to be listening. But when it comes to striking and getting hit, there's just something about getting hit that it's like what Mike Tyson says. Everybody has a plan
until you get hit in the mouth.
Until you get hit in the mouth.
Yeah, that's funny. So it sounds like, your biggest challenge when you're training, when you're at this point, because the fight's coming up, a couple of days.
Yep. 2 days.
And I mean, we're all excited, and you're kind of in that gear mode, whatever you want to call it. You're making weight, you're putting in hours. And not just you, but other guys too, who also have fights coming. I think you and Steven both have fights. And the next week, 3 more guys. You have Nico, Philippe, and Damien, all have fights. So last week we had, who do we have? We had Dominic, and so it's been pretty busy this month. So, but all you guys are training around each other the whole time. Have you been in a situation where it's been just you, or maybe just one other person stepping up for a fight or getting ready for a fight?
So on Sundays, I host sparring for our gym. And there has been days where I've had one person show up. When I'm not going into a fight, we'll have like 10, 12, 15 people show up. When I'm going into a fight, we'll have like 2 or 3 show up. And which has been kind of nice, because I get to kind of dissect their processes, and I get to talk about mine, and we get to bounce stuff off of each other. Do you know who Hector is? He's a shorter guy who has been going to ACS since it was over in Friendswood, I think.
Yeah.
Or at least I don't remember what city. Bay Area. And he's like 5 foot, and he has been really, like, we'll discuss on how a shorter fighter fights a taller fighter, and in those moments, I mean, I value those moments like crazy, because it's given me the inside of what they're thinking from experience, because Hector's been doing it for almost 10 years now. And so I get to put myself in their shoes and then understand why they're doing certain things and benefit.
So what weight division are you in?
170.
170? Okay. Because when you're talking about height, you never struck me as being particularly short or particularly tall. It seems to me kind of just right. And that's, I mean, do you feel that yourself, or do you feel shorter?
So I've never felt short in my life until I started fighting.
Really?
Yeah, because all the guys that weigh as much as I weigh are like 6'2", 6 feet tall. My first opponent was 6 feet. My second opponent, I don't know how tall he was. My third opponent, 6'2". They're all
This is
all
your third
giants.
fight?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
so that is, I wouldn't have thought I'd been in that way, but so what is it like being shorter, I guess? I mean, because you don't really run into that at ACS that much.
Not really. It's been interesting. Before, when we had Dustin at our gym, Dustin was probably the best example of someone who was a tall fighter. And again, there was one time where we had a session where it was just me and him, and we discussed about how taller fighters like to hit people as they come in and as they leave. And it gave me like an insight in the sense that if I'm going to go in, I need to be all the way in.
Stay in.
Or if I'm going to go out, it can't be that middle part is the most dangerous part for you tall people, And so
Yeah.
I wish I was taller, but I have found in the last year that there's ways that I can sneak punches that taller people cannot. We got one guy at our gym who's signed up for the fire department versus a police officers fight. They have like a boxing charity thing, and he's like 6'4", and there's times when I can like shorten his punches, but I can throw mine a lot harder because of how my arm length is would be here while he has that much, but I can get those punches right on the inside and dirty box them and really put them down. So it's not the funnest, but at the same time I make it work.
So you find another tall person again, what you're saying. How have you trained, but they've all been taller, you said, right? So how are you training differently now, or are you training differently now versus the first two times?
I found some tall people. I found a striking coach who I mean, all of his fighters are all above 6 feet, and I got to work like personally and work in those clinches and work the kicks and work everything that made it less trivial, if that makes any sense. Because
Expand on that. What do you mean by less trivial?
Fight taller people, there's a little bit of a wall, because if you go too far in, you're going to get hit, and if you're too far out, you're going to get kicked. And so there's like this almost desire to be in the middle. And from that striking coach, I was able to get to understand why that's dangerous and why I need to be more on the inside and more on the outside. And I got to figure out the distance management.
Okay, that's it. So this time around, you feel your distance management is
Way better.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Now, how about making weight? Was that any different, harder, easier?
No. I would love. I can't wait till Thanksgiving. I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
There's I don't remember where this story comes from, but it's a guy who they make a bet that he can't not eat for a week or a day, and he stands on a mountain, and it's not eat. He challenged him that he couldn't stand on the mountain for a week and stay in the cold. And what he did is on another mountain he built a fire, and then he stayed on this side and watched the fire, and basically just the look of the fire kept him warm enough to sustain himself through it. And to be honest with you, that's what it's like making weight. As you're looking over there and you're like, on that side I'll be eating, I'll be not hungry, I'll be drinking water. I just gotta wait.
So 170 is the way you got to make. Where'd you cut it from?
I cut from depending on how far back you want to go, but here in the last probably month and a half, from 185.
Okay, That's doable. I mean, because the reason I asked, because I know some fighters have gone from like 180 to 150,
No.
155, which sounds to me like, oof.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and I'm not sure how healthy that is.
It's horrible on your kidneys.
Yeah, I would think so. But once the fight's over, that part's all done. You don't have to worry about it at all.
Well, I should keep up with running and training, and there shouldn't be a crash. Which my last fight, I let it crash.
What do you mean by crash?
So, after my first fight, I remember, food, it tastes intense. And I really fell for like peanut butter and jelly. Really loved the peanut butter and jelly. So good. After my second fight, there's a little stuff happening at home, stuff happening at work, and I got really stressed out. And you since you don't have a fight coming up, you rationalize it. You're like, it's not going to be that bad. I could have a blah 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 blah. I could have a candy bar. I could have a soda, because you after you cut weight, for me at least, I don't know if this happens to other people. I like try things for the first time again. Like I'll have a Coke and I'll be like, wow,
I haven't had this in a while.
Yeah, this is amazing, and so. Yeah, cutting weight is it's its own monster, and in the sense there's fighting, and then there's the preparation part, and I feel like there's people who are really good at the preparation part and not so good at the fighting part, and really good at the fighting part and not so good at the preparation part, and I guess our goal is to
be both.
Yeah, to be good at both.
Not easy. I mean, so it's got to put a little pressure on the family side, because you have kids, wife and family, and work, right?
Yep.
So doing this takes time. Not that I've done MMA, but I've done other fights, and I know what it takes to. You just got to everything. Sorry, has to just take a back seat while I'm doing this, because if it doesn't, I'm going to be on my ass in the ring come in a couple of weeks, and no one wants that. Hopefully. So, how do you balance that side? Yeah, how do you balance your life?
So, I've been very blessed. My little brother growing up was a very, 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 I don't know how to, he's just very annoying, very needy, and I learned patience with him. I learned patience with my mom. I learned patience with my stepfather, and then my mom ended up having 2 more little girls when I was 10 and 12, and I've always been blessed with patience. Now that I coach gymnastics and I work with girls all day, yesterday in particular, today I feel for some reason today I feel a lot better. Yesterday I could hear a little bit of bite in my voice as I was speaking, and I had to be like, calm down, Chris, it's not going to be that bad. But it's, I guess the way I see it is it's not their fault. It's not I should never bring anything that is, because, I could have this discussion at work for days, but to me, you don't bring in outside into your work. Even if my work is like a very, interpersonal, we're connecting and we're talking, there shouldn't be a moment where I'm like, yeah, my wife, blah, 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 blah. Because to me, that's life, and then you have work. And so I try my hardest to not let that affect my work. And as I said today, I haven't drank any water today. I haven't had any food. And for some reason, I'm feeling really good today.
You weigh in tomorrow?
Yes, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then after that, you can take water. You
Yes.
can do whatever you want at that point once you weighed in.
Yes. One of the coolest tricks that Coach Drew has ever had us do is he'll have us buy Jolly Ranchers, and
Jolly Ranchers?
Yeah, Jolly Ranchers.
Really?
I know, it's so bizarre.
Yeah, tell me.
You're doing the weight cut. You come the morning before to go to the weight cut, and Coach Drew will say you can have 1 Jolly Rancher, and what it does is that the sugar that's in it won't affect your weight, and it makes your mouth water, which your mouth is super dry because you haven't drank water in the last 24 hours. And man, can I tell you, those Jolly Ranchers are the most delicious things in the world. It's just so good.
At that state?
At that state, yeah.
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 Wow. I've never heard of that. That'll make the highlight reel.
Yeah, it's a great idea. And I'm telling you that, I mean, you cheer because you like. I
But
get
are
to
you
have
doing that throughout or just at this point in your training?
in the what do you mean by that?
The Jolly Rancher.
It's just in the after the weight cut. So it's like the morning of the weight cut when you're heading up there. Just that amount of sugar won't affect, like it won't add pounds to you, and so it's only that day of, and then again it's measured, you know.
Yeah. So, in terms of what you've done differently this time around versus the other 2 times around, is distance managing. Do you feel at all? I mean, 'cause I saw both your fights. It didn't look like at any time they went to the ground. Do you feel, is that because tall people tend not to want to go to the ground, or just it's wasn't there, or because you're pretty good? I've always felt you're pretty strong in the ground.
So first guy, Nyan, grabbed the cage. I clearly, like Coach Drew says from the side, you could see both his legs come up, and he grabs the cage like this and puts his feet back down. And in that moment, I picked him up and I was like, "Here we go!" And then he didn't go down, and I like, was like, "Oh, that was really weird." And then the second fight, he was a wrestler. He was a state champion, and I was prepared for him to do a lot of shots, a lot of takedowns, and he did try once, and it didn't work out. And what I hope for in this next fight is that I have the longevity to actually go down to the ground.
This is a 3-round match?
Yes, sir. 3 rounds, 3 minutes.
Okay.
So I also think it's the time. I haven't fought someone who does a lot of ground stuff, nor have I been pushing it. But this time, I definitely. I mean, this next guy, he likes to press people against the cage and hold them there, which is something I love dealing with. It's one of the things
which
that
means you'll go to the ground at some point.
Yep.
Now, you've been training with guys who are pretty good on the ground. So, I mean, Philippe certainly, Nico certainly.
Yes.
All of them, really. Because ACS is pretty, it's MMA centric with a strong helping of groundwork. There's pounding and grounding, but the groundwork has always been really pretty much emphasized because Drew's himself is pretty strong on the ground.
Yes, he is.
So when you're training now, are you training to get people on the ground more versus when you did the way you trained before, or has it come up that way?
So we grapple to strike, we strike to grapple, and if the takedown presents itself, you go for the takedown. And something I've been learning a lot lately with training is when I go with Damien, or I go with, not so much with Nico, with Damien for sure, there's times when I can shoot on Damien and I can see it, because he'll shell up in a certain way or he'll go down a certain way. And because one of the things that I've struggled with in my training is I want to hold positions. Like if someone holds me against the cage, I don't want to get away from the cage. I just want to hold them there. And it's something that, when fists are flying, it's hard to hold people in places when you're not pushing them to the ground. And so it's something that I've had to really reconcile with, and have to really push myself to not stop. It's one of my favorite things about Byron. Byron, when you go to clinch with him, he's like
thrashing around.
Yeah, he's like someone electrocutes him,
Yeah.
And
I rolled with him on the ground, just on jiu-jitsu side for a while. He's hard to hold down.
Yeah, he's hard to hit. I can't wait to see him fight too. He's gonna fight on the same card.
But I think didn't something come up with his match?
I don't know,
because Drew mentioned something this morning.
Oh.
I will confirm that he might have posted on Facebook already, but I do know there's something came up, and it wasn't. I think the other guy either didn't make way. Something got canceled, similar to when when Nico's fight cut came. Remember the guy couldn't make weight, and then they that was bizarre.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
Well, that stinks.
But I guess and we all know that's kind of part of the game. What I just found incredible was that they were flown from Mexico City to here, and that was Nico's guy, and he came in 5 pounds overweight. I'm like, I can see 1 or 2, 5. I put that on the coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the fighter, but that's the coach not getting his head right.
One, they probably walked in trying to do it anyways. Trying to.
I think they could get away with it.
Yeah, the people tried to do that, where they'll try to come in and just because they don't have to cut, and you have to cut, and so it makes it where you're at a disadvantage at that point, and they'll try to they'll just try to almost like strong arm you into it. Like my first opponent, he didn't come in. He came in overweight also. And I remember him coming up to me to be like, I'm overweight. And like I didn't know what, like I didn't know anything, what to do. And I'm also delirious at this point.
Yeah, because you made weight.
Yeah. And so I think that when, especially 5 pounds, 1 or 2 pounds, as you said, but 5 pounds, because I feel like he had to check it that morning. He had to check it on the way there.
He had to check it like 2 days ago.
Yeah, and so I think that sometimes fighters will try to get the upper edge with that.
So I guess at this point, you got your strategy, you got your training, good training partners, right? I mean, they're not taller.
Yeah.
But they're pretty good, especially I'm thinking, you're going against Philippe and you're going against Nico, who are Philippe is like a tree, and Nico is a machine. That's his nickname.
I wouldn't say I have nightmares, but I definitely every day I come to class, my stomach's in knots because I know I have to fight Philippe and Nico.
But it keeps you, I guess, it keeps you honest.
Yep.
If I don't do this, and this, I can get my head handed to me. I might get it handed to me anyway, but won't be because I didn't follow the rules or whatever the training method is at the time. So I'm sure Coach Drew is aware of the different levels. How does he have them fight you versus when he fights them, or versus say you fighting I don't know, Damien or Steven? So
when you fight and train, one of the things that Coach Drew always talks about is taking care of your training partner. And one of the things that and when he discusses like hard sparring, at that point he's wanting you to hurt the other person. But when it comes to everyday training, there's times with Nico I have felt where Nico didn't throw a punch because there was like a completely wide open moment. And he'll either go and tap you, or I can almost feel it, right? And with Philippe doesn't pull back. Philippe will. I mean, he doesn't hit you as hard as he can, but Philippe throws every punch and tries to get in every hit, and it honestly just you meet it or you get beat. And with Philippe in particular, I at one point I broke his nose. And I can tell you in that moment, like I'm like, scared is not the right word, intimidated, because I know that Philippe can come with a lot of power. And so in that moment, it wasn't like here you go, or I got this move. It was more of like, he's coming at me, I need to hit him so he can stop. Let me throw this out there. And I think when it comes to fighting in the cage, no one is going to be as hard as Philippe. No one's going to be as hard as Nico. No one's going to be as hard as Steven. No one's going to be as hard as Byron. Like all of these people, these 4 in particular, where I'm training with every week. It's crazy how good they are. It's crazy how blessed I am to be able to train with these people.
That's a good way of looking at it.
What would you say to someone, say in their early 20s, mid 20s, who, kind of like yourself? Hey, I want to do that. What kind of person would you advise, hey, go take this path? And what kind of person would you say, it ain't for you?
So I think everybody should at least train boxing and jiu-jitsu because I think that there's this moment when you first start training jiu-jitsu where you realize that there's common people out there who can beat you, who can like wrap you up and like completely demolish you. And because as a guy, there's these things that we have where we're like, I could fight Conor McGregor, like I could take him on, and it's like, as a fighter, like I had a little girl ask me yesterday about self-defense, and I was telling her mom, like, you should never punch somebody because you have all these fragile little bones in your hand.
The heads are pretty hard.
And jaw, I mean, everything right here is a bone, and so it's not safe to punch. And I said, and the other piece is get away. Like, don't be in the moment. Don't fight like that. As someone who fights, I would tell others to not fight, because in an organized situation, in the sense of like in a gym, I still would encourage that. But outside street fighting, like there's nothing stopping people. And the 2 times that I've been knocked down in the cage, the ref was there so that this person didn't just end me, and so I would encourage everybody to take classes. I would not encourage people to compete, mostly because it's a different life.
Yeah, okay. That's my question then.
Yeah.
See, you would, for the majority, not compete, but there's got to be a few you can look at, okay, he can fight.
Oh yeah. But it again, coachable, because you got to also know that in gymnastics, I am pushing kids to their limits with stretching, with their physical, and so there's a perspective that I have in the sense of that, like, people won't have the ability to keep going. You underestimate how much cardio you actually have. And so in gymnastics, we do these little short bursts of energy to do a skill, and then afterwards we take a break or we go somewhere else. And but the kids are using all of that energy, and then you'll have kids at the very end who are tired, who are or I get attitude. And it when it comes to fighting, there's a very similar exertion of power that if you're not used to doing that, you won't be ready in the moment. You won't have enough adrenaline. You'll never be ready. And that's what I mean by competing, is that the people who would compete because they want to prove something are going to lose. People who are competing because they're angry are going to lose.
Why would they lose?
Because you have people who are competing because they love the sport, or they are competing because they have confidence in how fast their hands are. Like they're playing a chess game
Versus someone who's, oh, I see what you're saying.
instead of an emotional, oh, you hit me, I'm gonna hit you back. There's fighters out there who, they don't feel anything when they go into the cage. It's just a game. It's just, I've been watching a lot of interviews with John Jones. And there's times when he's talking, and I'm like, this dude is like a psychopath, But the way like when he's explaining his motives and why he does things, and it takes a special type of person to be able to go into the cage and not bring in your past life, and also not involve your current life. It's hard.
That sounds, boy, you just have to shut everything out.
Yeah.
When you step in there. Are you able to do that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, and I try my hardest to take care of things, outside of that. When you were asking about balancing my life, I have a lot of energy. On top of having a lot of patience, I have a lot of energy. So when I get home at 8 or 9 o'clock, I'm like playing with my little girl. I'm hanging out with my wife. I'm playing. I'm having a great time. And then in the morning, let's say my little girl gets up early. It's not like it's like, here's our adventure. Let's go. Let's go have fun. And so when it comes to these days, it's very easy in my life to ask for people to watch my little girl. My mom and my wife's mother do a really good job of taking care of my little girl while I'm training. And we have a really good network, really good.
That's helpful.
Group.
Family sport.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, do you see yourself, let's talk about life after the ring. Do you see yourself coaching? Do you see yourself continuing in some way, shape, or form?
I don't know. I love coaching gymnastics.
Oh, okay. With kids.
Yeah, it is. It's something I didn't know I was good at. There's been times where I've told a child something, they went and they did it, and I don't know how it made sense, and the way I communicated it to the way they did it. But
it worked.
It worked, and I have a gift for it. I enjoy it greatly, and there's a lot of things in my life that I can attribute back to that have helped me get to this point. And so I would love to keep coaching gymnastics.
How'd you get started in it?
So before the pandemic started, I was working at HEB, and then I quit to coach soccer. And this place, it's called Soccer Shots. It's where you go into daycares, you bring kids out into their little play area, teach them soccer, bring them back in, right? And they were very strict, very strict. I had to keep a shaved face. You had to be exactly on time. They'd have people come and watch you. I had to get child safety certified. I had to get CPR. My fingerprinted.
Yeah.
And they were very serious. And then when the pandemic started, so I got that job in January of 2020. Pandemic started March. It started spring break, and then they let us go. And so I had a friend who was like, "You're a coach. Why don't you go try coaching gymnastics?" And I was like,
Had you ever done gymnastics?
I did it for about 2 years when I was a kid.
Okay, so you're sort of familiar with it. Okay.
And so I was like, why not? And I went, and it started off with just the after school program. And then I started coaching, and then I started coaching more and more skills and higher level skills. And now I'm the head coach.
Well, would you ever see yourself coaching younger kids in, say, jiu-jitsu, for example?
I did a little bit with Coach Drew, or I did some boxing classes with them, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. It's like two sides of one coin. It's like you're training superheroes. I'm training the flips and the handstands, but on the other side is the striking and the fighting, and I feel like I'm going to flip-flop between the two of them for the rest of my life.
I mean, there's got to be some fulfillment in both, some satisfaction in both.
Oh, yes.
Now, in gymnastics, is it primarily girls that you teach?
Yes.
And in the boxing, girls and boys, or boys?
It was girls and boys.
Okay. What do you see different in terms of, when you're coaching boys and girls? What do you see the main difference between both of them?
Oof. That is so with boys, their attention span is way smaller, and they want to be doing something right now. It doesn't matter if it's touching a bar, touching the floor, doing a forward roll. They want to be doing something, and sometimes that means the class gets a little bit wild because you're having to hone them back in. With girls, girls have a lot more attitude, but at the same time they will listen. Like I can say, do this at this station, do this at this station, and do this, and try to do like this here, and they'll go and do it. Maybe one of them will be like, hey, I don't remember. But with the boys, if I have 9 boys and I just explained all the stations, all 9 of them are going to be like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like,
that's the memory.
Yeah, I don't know. But with boys we're pushing front flips and back flips. With girls we're doing a lot more bendy stuff. So there's a lot more grace in girls gymnastics. With boys gymnastics it's more about power. And so you push in those two directions with both.
How early does that start?
With the grace?
With the difference between power and grace.
So you start separating the boys and girls at 5. So before 5, they're essentially doing the same thing. But after 5, boys, just the capacity for boys to grow more muscles and stronger muscles is bigger than girls when it comes to their arm muscles in particular.
Okay.
Girls can be more flexible, boys can be stronger. And so at 5, you start really pushing the girls more into the flexibility skills, and you start pushing the boys into the power moves.
Wow, I didn't know it started out. You separated them that early.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's some. I mean, I think Simone Biles started at like 18 months. Like you can start.
Whoa.
Yeah,
That's like pre-talking stage.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you have any of those?
I used to teach it. It's called Mommy and Me, where the moms will come out and
Okay,
they'll work with
sure.
their kids. Right now, my youngest student is probably 2 years old. Yeah.
That's just, it's remarkable. Now, speaking of when you have parents involved, how does that work? I mean, do you find it? I mean, I'm sure it's the moms primarily. I would imagine. I don't know if you have any dads doing
Yeah.
it, but primarily moms will say, do you run into situations where the parent is trying to coach the child in a way, or at all, in a way that is kind of counterproductive?
So I recently went to a gymnastics seminar.
Yeah.
And they one of the things they talked about is that you are the professional. When you're out there doing it, you are the one who is constantly with kids, constantly teaching the same things over and over. And so that's one side of it, in the sense of that the coach is going to have like the idea of what they want done. But the other side of it is that I think, so the relationship between kids and their parents are very strong. And that sometimes parents will like almost see a mess up as a failure on them. And so there's times when I feel like I have to encourage the parent that the kid is not that bad. There's definitely been times
That's interesting.
where I've had a parent be like, tell me that my kid is bad. And I'm like, well, your kid is hyper, but...
I'm not training the kid, I'm training you.
Yes. Well, and being a parent is not easy, you know.
I've
not
got
easy.
3, so I can attest to that. And now these 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is fascinating. I was curious about, because I knew you taught gymnastics. I didn't know how it fit into the whole plan. And gosh, the background between the genders, the differences,
yeah.
and how early you start.
It's bizarre. It's really bizarre.
It's remarkable. I mean, I look at it almost from an anthropologic point of view. It's like you're looking at the species. Wow, you can start that early? And if we're doing it, you can bet you 2,000 years ago, the Romans or the Greeks or whoever, you and me, we'd have been carrying swords and spears by 3, shields. So you can start them that early.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Well, I'm gonna be thinking about that.
I love it. And when you first start teaching 2-year-olds, you're teaching more of like listening skills. You're teaching, to come here, do this, and you'll do a lot of repetitive moves. But, in a lot of ways, that's how humans learn. They learn. And in gymnastics, and I've told this to my coaches before, during the pandemic in particular, there was moments when we were dealing with people's kids for the first time ever. Like, because they had been, they were born before the pandemic. They had never gone to school. They're, 4 or 6, 7,
Wow.
8. They had never been, interacted with a teacher. They've never had a moment where they've run into confrontation with an adult. And we are some of the first people at that moment that were dealing with their kids. And, and that's what I was saying about the taking care or training the parent also, is that there's times when they're upset or they're worried or they're scared of something, and if I can give a piece of advice or I can give something that just makes them feel a little bit better about it, it's a seed that spreads into a tree. It becomes more. I got one little girl who is just hyper. She's always moving. She's always going. And I had suggested to the grandma that when she is not listening, to have her run and go touch something and run back. Just something simple. They're back. And, and it's not... It
almost like a game in a way.
Yeah, because it's not a punishment. It's more of like, I need your attention. Go use your energy. Come back. And that's where patience comes in handy, is you get to experience a moment without being angry. There's a lot of times when you want to be like, I don't understand why this is happening. Explain to me now. And with kids, they run into their thought process, their speech problems, whatever they may be dealing with in that moment. And if you can come to them then and there and talk to them at that moment, like, it's basically like talking to an adult. Because you're trying to understand them, they're trying to understand you. You're having a back and forth instead of it being, go do this because I said so.
Okay. It's a lot more give and take.
Yep.
From there, in terms of instead of someone just dominating.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how is that different? Like flipping the roles, you being the trainee and someone like Drew being the coach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how's that relationship?
So when Nico was the first one I realized it with. Nico and me were doing a private, and I could tell when I was doing well because of the way Nico was complimenting me. And there was times when I could tell I was not doing well or was not getting it because of the way he was complimenting me.
I gotta ask, how is the difference? How would you pick up the difference?
So Nico would say something like, throw your straight and then throw across and try to half beat it. And he'd be like, oh, okay, that was good, but try it again. And he would do it, and he's like, oh, well, okay, well, try to, he explained it one more time.
Translator, you're not getting.
Mm-hmm. And then on the third time, he'd be like, okay, let's move on to blah, blah, blah. And inside I'm like, oh, no. But really,
I let you down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I really, just listening. There's times, especially in this last fight camp, where I've had to tell myself, you need to listen. You need to, you don't know everything. You may be dealing with emotions, but you have to listen. And it comes and goes.
Yeah.
I'm a little hard-headed about it.
Well, tell you what, let's end here.
Okay.
I got like